It was the end of the world. The very fabric of reality tore and gave way to chaos. The realms of mankind were in civil war, with many giving into the whispers of the dark gods, with their voices clawing into their minds, where they would turn their own families into depraved icons of chaos. And the rest of the world joined in an uneasy alliance with each other to save the world or to destroy it. Little did the rest of the world know that it was no man that was the world's best hope to stop the dark gods. It was an orc. Grimgor Ironhide was an orc enslaved under the Chaos Dwarves. Not much is known about his time in captivity, and all that is known is that he escaped and went to the Orc Bandlands with his troop of loyal veteran black orcs called the Immortals. Since then, he has never lost a fight and continues to destroy all who oppose him. When the end times began, Grimgor was far away from his home, going to look for good fighting near the north end of the world, in the far-off lands of the Ogre Kingdoms in the mountains, and near the Grand Cafe, and that is where we meet Grimgor in Warhammer Total War, ready for us to control him and lead him to victory on the battlefield, where you can play Grimgor like an idiot. In this video, we're going to be going over the start of Grimgor's campaign in Immortal Empires and show you how to get a good foothold on your area and what you can do afterwards, so you can get to some shenanigans and where you should go, not only from a gameplay standpoint, but from a lore standpoint for what Grimgor did when he was up in that area where the end times began. Turn 1 serves as a little introduction on how you should play Grimgor, and orcs in general. Orcs are a dull, dim-witted race of mushrooms that live off of the idea of following the biggest and the baddest of their own kind, being incredible war dogs that want nothing but war and fights, having a primal need for war and conflict that is echoed throughout their culture and their religion. So, as orcs, when you get to fight something, you want to run at it and start chopping or throwing whatever projectiles you have at it until it is almost instantly crumped. If you send your melee units to clash with the other enemy's melee units and have good support with archers and artillery, usually having them aim at the middle of the fight, then you should win. Good old orc ingenuity of bashing something until it's crumped always works, which fits perfectly with Grimgor and the company he keeps at the start of the game. Grimgor is one of the best one-on-one combatants you can get in the entirety of Total War III and in the lore of Warhammer Fantasy, having some of the best stats to start out early game, and some of the best abilities late game that all revolve around him being this unstoppable force of nature, with him being able to stand up to enemies that are multiple times larger than him with ease. This means that if there were an enemy lord or hero that he can get his large green hands on, then he should be there fighting them, because 100 times out of 100, he's going to win. And right next to him should be the Black Orc Immortals, a group of Black Orcs that have followed Grimgor ever since his escape from the Chaos Dwarves. These boys are normal Black Orcs until you give them the Immortals banner, where they have a passive ability of not dying as long as they are above half leadership, which is kept at that healthy level if you're around Grimgor, which is good because both of them should be right in the middle of a fight and have no damage done to them. The last elite unit you have as a specialty at the start of the game are the Doom Divers Artillery. Most factions don't get artillery till mid to late game, but with this artillery you get to aim at the biggest blob in a fight, usually where Grimgor and the Blacks are, forcing an unfair fight for any idiot that thinks they can fight Grimgor. Do that in both of the fights this round, getting a settlement and destroying an army that is right at your borders, and start building troll caves. Besides that, build some loot hordes to get some of that good shiny stuff teeth. For Grimgor's skills, you should invest into his yellow tree. These skills give Grimgor stats, which is exactly what you want for Grimgor, who is stuck in a fight most of the time, making it so he can take lords and heroes down easily, but he can also have enough resistances and health that he will practically become functionally immortal on the battlefield. Heck, if you're worried about his leadership because of the amount of enemy troops he'll be facing, it doesn't matter after a while because he literally becomes unbreakable and will never run away from a fight. with him giving even better buffs to black orcs and himself down the line that allow him to do amounts of damage that would make Kolek's Sun Eater blush. And then you get chopped down by Grimgor's axe. As for your technology, you should go down the top path that gets you to a nice sweet 10% replenishment for your orcs at all times. And then the bottom tree for getting some of those orc infantry upgrades and scrap upgrades. Then down the middle to round everything out, max out that tree. And also get your warlords, like Ogluk the Horrible and the Spider-Man. Mayhaps get some other upgrades on the way, depending on how you feel about artillery, or goblins, or wolf riders, or anything like that. And then you can finally go to turn 2, 3, and 4, which are all about uniting an orc clan to the north of you, the Tusk Sons, and their leader, which is right here. When you're going up, you should be building up your army. While doing so, go for normal orc boys and goblin archers, because they both get the job done, and goblin archers are so darn cheap and low cost that they're good for covering fire for the orc boys, especially at the start, being your bread and butter melee units and range units for this army. With you using basically just upgraded versions of these exact same troops even in the endgame. Try to make it so you have a near even amount of them so you can have enough troops to cover your archers from the harsh realities of cavalry and other units fighting them in melee range. And at the end, when you destroy the Tusk Sons' leader, you can confederate and move Grimgor and the other army he has with the Tusk Sons southwards to get rid of the ogres that you're going to have to deal with an army trying to maybe take a settlement, fight the battle, and try to separate the troops, making it so they waver in leadership and run away so fast that they do the Scooby-Doo running sound. And then get some teeth for your horde. In turns 5, 6, 7, and 8, you should be waltzing down to finish off the ogres in your way, getting rid of the encampments and settlements that the ogres have set up. Make sure that Grimgor is taking all these fights to gain XP to try and get some more stats for himself, because at the end of turn 9, you should have the ogres completely decimated. You truly have no enemies. Not because you are peaceful, but because no enemies are left to oppose you, giving you a province and a half in this short time. Grimgor's new army should have some trolls in it at this point, because those have been ready since turn 3, probably like 2 units of them. They suck if they have to fight against fire damage, but otherwise are incredibly good and tanky, and can easily punch up in weight against other enemies because of their regeneration, good melee, and having good movement speed, so they can just be the first to show up in a fight, while cavalry takes out artillery and ranged units, which is something you'll need because of your initial scuffle of the campaign is over. But now you have your first of 2 quest battles that Grimgor can go through. In this one, we have to go and get his one and only axe, Git Snick, an axe that is so chock full of magics from orc shamans, it gives Grimgor speed, strength, and power above all else, while also being made in a demon forge for some extra spice with the effect of never dulling. You'll have to fight for your green hide in this battle though, because, this is easy, that's just some humans from the Empire, an empire that you won't see in most normal, short, or even long playthroughs as Grimgor in this game after this fight. So pretty easy peasy, except for this invention of mankind called a tank. If you send Grimgor after the Lord and the heroes, the trolls after the steam tank, and make your Doom Divers infantry and all that do their thing, you should be going through this easy peasy, until you get the misfortune of meeting some dwarves. Send your cavalry to deal with their artillery, as well as your trolls, if the tank is done and dealt with, and let Grimgor go and fight that dwarven lord, and make them slapbox each other. And they should be running back to the hills, with most of your army being only slightly brutally massacred, but alive enough to be able to regen to full because of the higher replenishment rewards after this campaign battle is won. Git Snick now makes Grimgor an even more unstoppable beast on the battlefield, making him do more damage passively, getting more loot while fighting, to replenish those who might meet the wrong end of a sword, while also making him better against anything that might be larger than him, making it so he can fight things like giants and any other large creatures, making it so he can stand his ground against any bully in his way and shove them into their locker instead. He also gets an active ability to pierce through armor and do more damage for about 30 seconds before needing to cool down, making it so he can flip a switch and obliterate a lord like it was nothing, and then going back to his normal stats to deal with all the rest of the mobs in his way. Later on, Grimgor gets his Bloodforge armor, making it so he is tankier on the battlefield, having more armor as well as melee defense, and just straight up resisting 15% of all damage that comes his way. He is now also more resistant towards enemy heroes, trying to slow down Grimgor by injuring him or taking him out of combat, and he also comes back a whole turn sooner if he is ever taken out of a fight. And he gets a small explosion he can use against mobs of enemies to make them get away from him as a get-off maneuver, as an active ability, usually making it so he can clear the way for his own troops so he can get towards an enemy lord. So what do you do after you get Git Snick? The short answer is that you can do whatever you want. The longer answer is that you should have a wab by now, making it so you're unstoppable for about 20 turns, giving your armies a secondary smaller army that follow them around. One of the bots, will be really angry that you exist with them declaring war against you, because that's kind of just how the game works. And you get what an orc always wants, a constant fight against, most likely, Mr. Sun Eater or some Chaos Dwarves to the north of you. That will be reasonably easy to destroy, even if they have the Chaos Waste on their side, but you have tunnels to use to get around suffering attrition from these Chaos Wastes, which is pretty freaking sweet, because you can work on getting the northeast edge of the map, making it so you have no threats there, taking out the Cathay and some Skaven on the way, making it so you can deal with the enemies to your east, eventually working your way to getting the ogres to the south, getting rid of Grease's Goldtooth, an enemy that Grimgor dealt with in the end times too, with him beating the king of the ogres to the realm of souls and back by destroying him and most likely his head with his own scepter and uniting the ogres and the orcs together in one tribe. And for the love of Gork and Mork, don't go eastward at the start of the game against these Sentinel Chaos Dwarves. They start off the game with 3-fold Doom stacks that would just mess up your day and kill Grimgor really easily. Only mess with these guys if you're good at the game and know how to use ambushes to the best of your ability early game. Otherwise, wait until you have some more elite units. Eventually, if you head northwest after a long time, you'll be able to fight Archaon the Everchosen. Grimgor, during the end times, had his final battle against Archaon, where he humiliated the Everchosen and almost won before the Chaos Gods gave Archaon unimagined power, and Grimgor was slain. But before Grimgor left, he proved truly that he was the biggest and the baddest. But that won't be how your Grimgor story ends, will it? But besides that, there are a quick load of videos on how to play Grimgor and some of his lore. I hope you guys liked it. Next week, we'll be going over some of the lore surrounding the Once and Future Git, chronicling his adventures and how he somehow became the reason that Warhammer Fantasy needed a multiverse.